And we should be live. Welcome everyone. I'm just gonna give it a minute until I can see that you guys are indeed in the chat. We are live from London. It's about 9:35 p.m. UK time, and it is Monday the 4th of August. Let me know in the chat that you can hear me properly. If any of you are completely new to me, if you've randomly clicked on this live, and if you don't know what you're looking at, it's a live stream walk. We'll go and have a little walk on the South Bank. And we've got about 10 minutes before to start. So if you were watching us from the future, like if you're watching the replay the next few weeks or months, if you wanted to go straight into the walking tour, you could skip the next 10 minutes. Thank you, Tish. Great audio. Thanks, Nikki. Sia is saying great audio. Perfect. Well, talking about the audio, before we start, most of you know the drill already. I want to check that the microphone is working properly. It's actually a bit windy today. There's a bit of a storm somewhere in the country. Not here, but we don't want to hear the wind. So, yes, I'm well, Samantha. Thank you. Hi, Mitzi. Hi, Laurie. Welcome, Ronnie. Welcome, everyone that just joined. So you know the drill. I'm going to tap the microphone 3 times. Let me know in the chat if you've heard it properly. Hi, Cindy from Detroit. Right. Cool. You should have heard 3 distinctive taps. Let me know whether you've heard that. Because if you didn't, you would still be able to hear me, but that would mean that the sound is being captured by the phone instead of the microphone. We want the mic, not the phone. You've heard it. Perfect. Thank you, Tish. Hi, Claudia. Nice to see you here. Welcome, Dennis. Nice to have you along. And hi, Rose. So yeah, if at any point through the tour the sound goes a bit funny, don't be shy, let me know, because it happened last time. We had some kind of grizzling noises for some reason. Hi Lee, nice to see you here. So we've got, I think, about 8 minutes. Yes, about 7 minutes now before we start. Let us know in the chat where you're connecting from. So if any of you are watching this on replay in the next few weeks or months, this is a live stream, so there is a chat. If you're watching the replay and you wanted to see the chat, it should be somewhere under your screen. It is an option to see the chat, because sometimes, you know, I try to repeat what's happening in the chat. Hi, Cheryl. But sometimes I might be reacting to something in the chat, and if you wanted to see that, you've got the chat replay. On a computer, on a phone, I'm not sure you can see that on a phone. Unless you're watching us live. When you are with us in the live, you have the chat regardless. It's only when you watch the replay in the future. So if it's no longer 4th of August for you, you're probably watching the replay. So it is nearly 9:45 UK time. And welcome everyone for joining. I see the numbers going up. We still have about 5 minutes to go. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. And welcome, Shaz. Let me show you a glimpse of the view already. I am in St. Katherine Docks. And here is the Tower Bridge. There should be a little opening of the bridge in 20 minutes. Hi Camille, welcome. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. We still have about 5 minutes to go. I say should because there's a boat scheduled to go through Barge Gladys. They should be here already. They should be somewhere moored around the London Bridge. Hi Sandrine, nice to see you here. But we never know, because it was a bit windy today and it's a sailing barge. They could have cancelled it, but it's still on the listing, so we should be all good. Let me see what time it is. Yes, exactly 5 minutes before we go. If anyone was new to me, let us know in the chat. It's always great to see some new names or new viewers. And even if you're new to me watching the replay, let us know in the comments as well. Why not? So tonight we'll have a little live walk on the South Bank. We are not on the South Bank yet. We're going to be crossing over the bridge in a moment. At the moment, I'm in St. Katherine Docks. Which is a lovely little area. A lot of people don't even really know it's there. You know, a lot of tourists would stay by the Tower of London on the other side. They don't realize you have this amazing little marina hidden here, tucked away behind the buildings. Are you new to the live, but you've watched some of the videos? Well, nice to have you in the chat, Camille. You're very welcome. And welcome, Rosemary. Nice to see you here. So we've got another 4 minutes to go. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. And then we'll go for a walk. And Trista is here. Welcome. Nice to see you here, guys. And welcome, Sarah. So it is nearly 9:45 p.m. in London. Hi, Julie. Welcome. Let me see what time it is. 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes. And it's fairly warm tonight. Well, warm. I probably should be wearing a jumper, but didn't bring any. Thank you, Rose. Yes, if you have a minute, a like always helps with the algorithms. And with the chat, feel free to use it. Don't be scared about distracting me, even through the walking tour. You know, that's the point with those lives. You know, it's my job to decide how much I interact with the chat, how much I ignore it. So don't be shy, just chat away. Do I feel safe walking around London at night? Yes, Cheryl, I do. I don't... Maybe I shouldn't. That's a different story. But yeah, I feel safe. And bearing in mind, I am live anyway. Most of the youngsters, they'll know they shouldn't attack me because there'll be a lot of witnesses anyway. So if anything, if they wanted to attack somebody, they should go to someone that is not live on YouTube with dozens of witnesses, you know, because their face could be captured on camera and then we'd have evidence. If I was just filming, that wouldn't matter because if they took my phone, they took my phone. But I'm live, so even if they took my phone, you'd be able to do a screenshot, you know? Right, let me see. 1 minute to go.
I don't want to do a job, just my sole person.
And welcome back, Pisas. Hi, Marty. Welcome. Exactly 40 witnesses already. And I think it might be time, let's see. Yes, it is officially time to start. It is 9:45. So let me gracefully stand up and let's go. So I'm gonna flip this camera around. We'll come back to the Tower Bridge in a sec, but for now, let me show you a bit of St. Katharine's Dock. So it is, well actually there's a little illustration of St. Katherine here. I think it used to be the site of an hospice. That's why it's a very Catholic name, St. Katherine, because there used to be an hospice here that was quite active until, even in Tudor times, it was quite active, welcoming travelers and stuff. Now it's a lovely little marina, probably quite expensive to moor your boat over here. But yeah, it's a former dock. We are in the middle of what we called the Pool of London. London is, of course, or was, a huge port. We'll go and see a bit more of that next week. I'll take you to the former docks in Canary Wharf. But let me show you this lovely little dock already. So the building straight ahead, that is Ivory House. It's been completely refurbished. It's the only building on this side that's still part of the original docks. Ivory House, because they used to import a lot of ivory. Once upon a time, like 150 years ago, or even not that long ago, it would have been full of elephant tusk, you know. The St. Katharine's Docks were known to be importing a lot of expensive goods, you know, ivory or wine or tobacco. So the goods over here were quite valuable. Today, Ivory House, it's been completely refurbished inside. On the ground level, you have quite a few nice restaurants and bars. There's another cool pub straight ahead on this side. See the light in the middle there? That's a nice pub. But yeah, today in Ivory House, you also have some apartments. 3 million each. And you live in a place that used to be full of dead elephant parts. So yeah, we used to import a lot of ivory because they produced, well, they used it a lot in Camden because they produced a lot of pianos in Camden. So to do the pianos, you know, touching whatever you call them, and also some of the ivory was going to be exported back to places like India and stuff where they used to do little characters or little engravings. Now you also have some nice apartments down this way. Down this way we'd go down towards Wapping with a lot of interesting pubs that used to be full of pirates once upon a time. I know when I say pirates, you probably imagine Pirates of the Caribbean and stuff. Anyone stealing from a boat was known as a pirate at the time, and the punishment was the same. The punishment for piracy was the capital punishment. And of course, over here in St. Katharine's Docks, we were talking about expensive goods. Got to be careful here not to get trapped in the chains. So yeah, you had a lot of pirates that were interested. Yeah, it's quite sad. I've seen pictures of the building with hundreds of huge elephant tusks inside. But yeah, poor elephants. Anyway, let's get a bit closer to the Tower Bridge. So Tower Bridge, it is an amazing piece of Victorian engineering. So it's not as old as it looks. They purposely had a style that's a bit Gothic, a bit Norman. It's actually because they wanted it to go with the older buildings around it. So to go with the Tower of London, really. That's why it's known as the Tower Bridge. It's not because you've got two towers on top. It is because it leads to the Tower of London. So it dates back to the time of Queen Victoria, 1894 to be precise. Talking about Queen Victoria, did you guys see the news this week? She probably has a new great-great-granddaughter in Minnesota called Ange. This is, it's not really new. There've been allegations for many decades, really, that Queen Victoria might have had a love affair with John Brown, the staff member that spent a lot of time with her after she lost her husband. But there's been a new book. I don't know if you saw it in the press this week. There's been a new book that was just published, as well as a new Channel 4 documentary. They claim, so it's a doctor, I think her name is Ferns Riddle. She has a lot of well, at least circumstantial evidence to suggest that Queen Victoria might have been secretly married to John Brown, and that they might have had a baby that was, of course, hidden away, that would have been given to John's brother and hidden in New Zealand for the time being and stuff. But yeah, that's an interesting theory. Did any of you see it in the press or not at all? The documentary is very interesting. Yes, Nikki, I think a lot of people would have, there's a hotel behind me called the Tower Bridge Hotel, I think it's called. They probably tell their customers when the boat is meant to be lifting. So yeah, I'm guessing they're waiting like us. We'll probably stay here because that's a good angle. Or we could maybe go a bit closer. Let's see. You didn't see that? Oh, you should try to watch it, Tish. The doctor as well, she's very hot. The doctor that's responsible for the research, Dr. Fern, she's probably the most attractive historian I've ever seen. Ah, they're making the announcement. So they're gonna start clearing off the bridge in a second for Gladys. Sailing barge Gladys is going through. So if you have a boat, it's actually free to get an opening of Tower Bridge. It happens a lot in the summer. It's about 600 times a year on average, but it's mainly in the summer and it's mainly in weekends or touristic period because the boats don't really go much further. See where the bus was a second ago? We had an accident in 1952. We had a double-decker that was engaged. We'll see one coming through in a moment. He was coming from the south, so the other way around. But see where the bus is right now? Well, the bascule in the middle, the bridge had started to lift. And nothing the poor driver could do, signalization problem. The bridge had started to lift. He could have stopped, of course, but then he might have ended up into the cars behind him. Or he could jump. Would you believe that's exactly what he did? He jumped to safety on the other side. He saved everyone. No major casualties. Well, there were a few broken bones. The ticket inspector had a broken ankle. There was a boy with a broken collarbone, but no fatalities. No one died. To say thank you to the driver, Albert Gunter, they gave him £10. Well, in the 50s, that was a bit more than today. We're talking about nearly $300 in today's money. Can you imagine sailing under this at night? Yeah, it's probably amazing. It's probably quite nice to be up there as well when they open. I should try to do it myself because I can go up on the platform for £1 because I am a Southwark resident. So I can go up there pretty much whenever I want. Oh, you have an Earl ancestor over here, Cindy. That's cool. Anyway, you can probably hear the alarm, so that's a sign they'll clear off the bridge. So they'll stop the traffic first, and then it takes a little while for the pedestrians to finish crossing as well, and then they'll be able to lift it up. So the barge is on the other side. The barge has already come through at 6:45, so they should be coming from behind the bridge. We've got one of those Uber boats going through. Those Uber boats, they're quite cool. I take them myself at least 4 times a week because I often take groups on the Uber boat when we go from the Tower of London to the changing of the guards by Buckingham Palace. So you could sail under the bridge. There's I don't really know how you book Barge Gladys. I don't know if it's a private hire or if it's like a little cruise. There's another one that's called, I think it's called Will. It looks like it looks almost like the steamboats you have on the Mississippi River and stuff, like Tom Sawyer times and stuff. That one you could also ride it all the way down to the estuary. Oh, your ancestor was killed for treason. Wow. Those executions at the time, they were a proper party, you know. Well, if you were lucky, if you were a VIP, you might be beheaded, inside of the tower. There was luxury, there was a big privilege to be executed with a small audience of 50 people or whatever it might be. But that was for the VIPs, that was for the former wife of the kings and stuff like that. The normal executions on Tower Hill, there was thousands of people in the audience. And here it goes. See, it starts lifting up. Depending on the size of the boat, it doesn't always lift up all the way to the top. Barge Gladys is not that big, so they probably don't even need to go all the way to the top. It's also quite nice sometimes I cycle past and I get stopped on the bridge. When you are the first one, when they stop the traffic, it's also quite cool to see it right from up front. Ooh, they went almost all the way to the top. Hi, Pauline, thanks. Oh, here is Gladys. I thought she was coming from the other side. Oh, unless it was another ship coming towards 6:45. Probably didn't check the listing properly. So here is Gladys coming in, so coming upriver. Do you think you would have been considered as a traitor with your bad jokes, Ronnie? I think it takes a bit more than that to be executed, but who knows? There were quite a few at the time of King Henry VIII. And here goes Barge Gladys. So you see, it's quite quick. The bridge lifts up in less than a minute. That's why it was never really used as its original purpose. Because back in the day, they wanted a bridge there, yes, but they wanted a bridge that would let the boats go through to be able to access the rest of the docks on the other side. But the thing is, the platforms at the top, as well as the staircases, that was for the pedestrians. So they wanted the pedestrians to go all the way up. It's like almost like 7th floor, you know, to cross over and back down, when really they could just wait a minute or two like we just did right now and then stay on ground level. So the staircases on the platforms were not really used as their original purpose. And that's part of the reason why they became a bit disreputable, let's say. At the time, a lot of the ladies of the night used them to wait for the dockers and the sailors. And that's part of the reason why they had to close it eventually in 1910. So it was never really used as its original purpose. And another Uber boat coming through. Cool, let's go. So nowadays it is an attraction, so you could buy yourself a ticket to go up on crossover at daytime. Just make sure not wearing a skirt when you do that, because it's a glass floor. Well, you don't have to be on the glass. You could stay on the side. And now they have a new selfie mirror above the glass, so you can take a selfie standing on the glass with taking the photo in the selfie in the camera in the mirror above. So that's quite cool. Right, so let's go on Cross Tower Bridge. First, let me show you this. That was pretty much always the case, even in Victorian times. But at the time, apparently a lot of the bodies washed out around here, around the Tower Bridge. So they had, they needed a space to put those bodies, you know, for the time being, until their loved ones could come and recognize them. Of course, you had accidents or murder or people that might unalive themselves. So because there was because there was an abundance of bodies, we had a little morgue. This little alcove over here, right under Tower Bridge, it is known as Dead Man's Hall. And would you believe that was a morgue? So that's where they used to put the bodies. The bodies that were found down the river, they would be put right here. That's why you've got tiles on the ceiling and on the walls, because the bodies, you know, they used to get a bit bloated, and sometimes, you know, they would explode. So that's much easier to wash, to wash off the blood and the guts and everything. So that's the little secret of Tower Bridge. It's the Dead Man's Hall. Now we'll go up the bridge, but not through those staircases here, because we want to be on the other side. And see, this is the door of the tower being closed. They'll be closing the tower, but they've just closed it anyway. They closed the tower 7 minutes ago. Every night, 9:53, at the Tower of London, they have the closing ceremony. It has been over 740 years now. It was never, ever cancelled. It was once delayed through the Second World War because they were bombed. So the beefeaters, those are the human warders, you know, the guards at the tower, they actually spent a few minutes extinguishing the fire. And this is the Tower of London, the big castle building on the other side. We'll see the tower a bit better from the other side of the river. But yeah, so every night, 9:53 on Water Lane, so that's the main lane on this side of the tower, you have a beefeater marching down with a lantern and a big set of keys. The keys, little secret, only one of them is actually useful, but they have a few just to make it look nice. And also, if you were to take a photo and try to do a 3D print, you wouldn't know which one to do. So yeah, he's marching down with a big set of keys and a lantern. Then he's being challenged by one of the King's Guard, you know, the bearskin hats and red tunics. And they go, "Halt! Who's there? The keys. Whose keys? King Charles's keys. All in order. Go ahead." All of that, so then the beefeater can march to go and close the tower. So that could be closed by 10 exactly. So the tower has just closed now a few minutes ago. And after that, it's a bit more complicated for the beefeaters to come home, because you have about 120 people living inside of the Tower of London. You have the 35 beefeaters, 5 of them are ladies, one of them just became a sergeant, and they have their families. So you have about 120 people in total, and it doesn't have to be only their kids. One of them he's got his niece. She's a TikToker. She does little videos of what it's like to live in the tower. And some of them have kids. A lot of them, their kids are grown, because to be a beefeater, you'd have to have done at least 22 years in the British Army before to be able to apply to be a beefeater. So a lot of them, their kids are already grown, but some of them have young kids. Yes, bearskin hats, yes. And it is actual bearskin from Canada. They did try synthetic materials about 10 years ago now. It looked very good, we couldn't tell the difference, but after a few months in the sun, it became a bit reddish, so they went back to bearskin. Now, excuse my finger, but see behind the window there, you see like a big metal cross. Because really, Tower Bridge it's beautiful stones around the big metal structure. From here, you know, you could imagine almost like a Disney princess at the balcony and stuff. There's actually hardly anything inside. It's a beautiful structure around, this is the 78. This is the bus that had the incident, the bus that jumped in 1952. It wasn't the same, of course. At the time, it was a routemaster. You know, the buses from the 50s, we call them the routemasters. But it was the number 78, the other way around. He was coming from the south. Now I'll show you right here the spot where it splits. So I'm now on the bascule part of the bridge. So right here, this is the middle. So this is where we saw it split up and lift up just a moment ago. Right, let's go down the south bank. It's always beautiful at night because it's so well lit and everything. So yeah, in the summer it's not that unusual to see it open. That's why myself, I often work at the tower in the morning, and I come from the south because I live in Southwark, but south. I can choose whether when I cycle through Tower Bridge or London Bridge. Most of the time I actually go through London Bridge, because Tower Bridge, you never know if there happen to be an opening, the traffic gets crazy and then you can be stuck for a little while. So you're always better off crossing London Bridge instead. Hi Sarah, and welcome everyone that just joined. Let me turn around to show you another view of the bridge from here. Let's go. So we're heading down the south bank. Nowadays, of course, Southwark is very much part of London, but back in the day it wasn't. Back in the day, straight ahead, see all those skyscrapers? That is the City of London. The City of London with a capital C. It is, but back in the day it was London. On the other side it was a different jurisdiction. That's why you had on the other side all the stuff that were slightly disreputable. You know, the theatre, the cockfighting, the brothels. Still today, the South Bank is a bit of the entertainment district, really, as opposed to the city. That's more the business district. And we'll go downstairs. We have, usually there's a little lift, but it's out of order. So we'll take the stairs. Now to my left, that's an interesting street called Shad Thames. I think it's called after a fish that was called a shad. We'll go down a bit to have a better view, but that was a huge collection of warehouses. And if you went a bit further down, we're not gonna go, but that's where you had a street on an area that became Jacob Island. That's featured in Oliver Twist. You might remember when Bill Syke, you know, the villain, Nancy's partner and pimp, he after killing Nancy, he runs off with his little dog, and he climbs on the roofs, and then he accidentally hangs himself. He's got a rope and he accidentally hangs himself. It's in Jacob Island. Let me just show you the beginning of the street. So we're gonna go down the other way, but just to show you. So this area was full of lovely warehouses, some of which we'll see some similar one next week when we go to Canary Wharf. But you see those little balconies now, but back in the day they were those stuff to roll the barrels and stuff. So all of those warehouses have been completely refurbished to now have quite a fancy area. But let's So we're leaving Shad Thames. Down this way you have a little staircase. It's closed at this time, but you can go down the river. So if you go down there, you've got an old staircase to go all the way down to the river. That's often used by the mudlarkers, of course, when the tide is low. They want to go down and look into the river mud. Because London is so old, you can still find quite a lot of pottery or clay pipes or even coins if you're lucky. Let me give you another view of the bridge and then we'll go down to the other side. Welcome everyone that just joined. Let us know in the chat if you happen to be new. For those of you that often follow me, you might know I like my letter boxes, you know, those red post boxes, those pillar boxes. Well, there's an interesting one over here. Oh, and this is the new mascot of the Tower Bridge. They have a cat now everywhere on their marketing. Last time I went up, I was with my nephew. Well, my son. I had to press my son to take him up for a pond. But yeah, they've got those stuff for kids. They've got those little, those little books you can stamp with what you've learned and stuff. And the Tower Bridge cat is their new mascot. But anyway, let me show you the letterbox. I believe it's actually a replica. I believe it's actually a fake that was done in the 80s. But can you see the cipher? Hold on, let me get my torch. You might see a bit better because it's a bit dark. Can we see that's VR, Victoria Regina? So that's one of the penfold boxes. So that's one of the old models, although I think it's a replica from the 80s. Right, let's go. This street here, today it's no longer a street really, today it's like a promenade. It used to be called Pickled Herring Street in Victorian times. Now from here we've got a lovely view of the tower. And welcome Tariq. So the Tower of London, it's, excuse my finger, but that's the tower. All of that's the tower really. But in the Tower of London you actually have 20 towers approximately inside. But it is known as the Tower after the original one. So the big block in the middle, that's the White Tower. And that is nearly 1,000 years old. The gentleman that had it built, you might have heard of him. His name is William the Conqueror. He was the Duke of Normandy. You might know the Normans, they invaded in 1066. And when William took over London, let's say that the local community was not massively excited about the idea of having a French king. So William wanted to impress. He wanted to show everyone that they were now playing with the big boys. So he built a massive palace. It was built as a palace and it was used as a royal residence for a while, but it very quickly became a prison. They said the Tower Bridge was it just opened 10 minutes ago, so the next one will be on a different day. So yeah, it very quickly became a prison, but a bit of a VIP prison. To be locked in there, you'd have to be from high society or to be a high traitor or a former friend of the king or a former wife of the king in some occasions with King Henry VIII. And you might also have heard of the Tower as a place of executions. Yes, but not that many. We believe that over the centuries, just over 20 were executed inside. That's because it was luxury to be executed inside. And more than half of those actually were German spies through the First and Second World War. So in terms of public beheadings, it really wasn't that many. And some of the people that were beheaded, they would have come down through the river here, straight ahead. It's hard to see at night, but that's the Traitor's Gate. Because a lot of the people that were locked in here at the tower, they were accused of plotting against the monarch. Whether it was true or not, in many cases it was very much debatable. But because those guys were so-called plotters, they did not want to have them coming in through the Lion Gate on the other side. Yeah, I said Lion Gate is actually the Middle Tower Gate, but there were some lions there, because the Tower of London was also a bit of a zoo. Because the kings and queens, they, you know, when you are a king or a queen anywhere across the globe, you pretty much already have all the gold or all the silver you might want to have. So the kings and queens, they didn't quite know what to get one another as a gift. So they started to gift each other animals that would be very exotic for the other monarch. So that's how they got lions, monkeys, a polar bear as well from the King of Norway. The polar bear, he had a chain at his ankle and he could go and fish for himself in the river. He didn't live very long. We also had elephants from the King of France. Not that there were many elephants in France, of course, but they had stolen them from the Crusades, and then they gifted it to the king here. And so yeah, the traitors, they did not want to have them come in by the normal gate, by the lions, because they thought they could be saved. You know, there might be some riots. People might try to save them and put them on the throne. So what they did is they had them put on a boat on the river, and they came through the Traitors' Gate there on the river, so no one could save them there because it was all water. And inside, they were a bit shortened. Not always. When you had money and you were a prisoner at the tower, sometimes you lived quite well. Now, just so you know, over here, officially it's private. You need permission to do some professional filming. So if suddenly I just zip it, it's because there might be a security looking at me or something, okay? So if I stop talking, don't get worried. It's just because I don't want to be kicked out. Right, on the left-hand side, that's on that side, that's the Cradle Tower. That's where a priest, a Jesuit priest called Father John Gerard, escaped from. He very famously escaped. Gerard was a Catholic priest, you know, at the time under the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, where Protestantism was the thing. And he had been, he refused, of course, to stop performing Catholic secret masses. He was hidden in a priest hole, and he did get caught. He was locked in at the Clink prison first. I'll show you the Clink in a moment. And then eventually he was locked in at the tower, and he very famously escaped. He allegedly, he bribed the jailer to be able to go and visit his other friend, another Catholic priest in the other, in this tower that's closer to the river. And he allegedly asked the jailer for oranges so he could practice, because he had been tortured and his hands were, oh crap, not meant to say that term on YouTube, but anyway, whatever, I've said it now. He's been mistreated, let's say, and he claimed he wanted to practice with his hand with oranges, and he also asked for a feather on some paper, and he allegedly would have written some, you know, with orange juice you can do some secret ink. It doesn't show on paper unless you bring it to a flame, you know, like a candle. And yeah, he would have written some secret letters to his friends to organize a boat, and then he would have bribed the jailer to go to see his other mate in the other tower, and then he escaped. It's a lovely story. That's what he wrote in his biography, and you'd think he's a priest, he's not gonna lie, right? It's probably exaggerated. Let's say that it looks very good, you know, the Pope would be happy, it looks very good for the Catholics, but if you can bribe a priest, a jailer, to give you some oranges and to give you some paper and to let you go and see your mate, you can probably bribe a jailer to let you out. The truth is, he probably was lying to protect the jailer. The jailer might have been a secret secret Catholic as well. Who knows? Yeah, we'll go and see the Clink in a moment, Cindy. We actually know a lot about what was happening in the Clink because of Father John Gerard, because he was a priest. Of course, he knew how to write, and he's the one that left a lot of. I'll talk to you in a moment.
No, Manuel, just pick up. Sorry, we are busy. Ah, no, okay, Manuel. Okay, Manuel. Thank you,
Yeah, sorry, there were 4 of the securities. I mean, they're not really. I don't know what the policy is at the moment, but I know they have stopped me before from filming, so when they're looking at me, I try not to speak. I find that not speaking, you look like a tourist, you're just filming around. But when you do live commentary, it looks like commercial filming. Anyway, the boat, that's the HMS Belfast. It is a naval ship. So it was used through the Normandy landings, through World War II. Now it is a museum, so you could go on board and see what it's like to be on a naval ship. Now I'm gonna try to go quite quick. And the skyscrapers on the other side, that's still the City of London. Right, we're good now. So let's go and see a former dock. So all this area back in Victorian times, that was full of docks with a lot of cargo coming from all over the empire. You know, tea, rum, sugar, tobacco. So it was also full of pirates, because sometimes those boats, they had to wait for hours and sometimes even days before to be able to unload their cargo, because the docks were busy. So of course you had some people trying to jump on board to steal some of the cargo. They were known as pirates, and the punishment for piracy was the capital punishment. They'll wait for the tide to be out. They'll place the gallows on the beach area, and they'll hang the pirates, and they would leave them there hanging dead for 3 tides to come in and out, to metaphorically wash their bodies away from their sins. And the most notorious pirates, they would be gibbeted. I'll show you an example of that in a moment, because we've got 2 gibbeted pirates on the way. How much does it cost? This guy is asking, do you mean the Belfast? It's probably about 33 quid, I think. Most attractions these days, they're 30 quid. But I could be wrong. Laurie, it's been there from, I think, 72 or beginning of the 70s. Officially, it's still in a running order, but I guess if we had a war today, it probably wouldn't be this type of wars. Now, let me show you Hayes Galleria. So this is a former dock. So that's, at daytime it is open, so you can go through. Actually, they've just set up a mini, how do you call it? You know, it's like tennis, but it's like a mini tennis. Paddle tennis, something. Anyway, 60 quid for an hour, I just checked. So if you wanted to come and play tennis in Hayes Galleria, it's quite pricey. And the boat, that's what it would have looked like at the time. So when they had the ships coming in to unload their cargo. So now it's been all dried up, but at the time that's what it would have looked like. Now let's go and take a look at London Bridge. London Bridge is very famous because of its history. And the most famous of the London bridges, we actually had 5 over the years. The most famous was the one on the mosaic here, the one with buildings on top. Sadly, this one is gone. After that, they built another one that was also quite popular. But it was so popular that they wanted to do some work and enlarge it, and they realized it was sinking a bit every year, just a few centimeters, but enough for them to want to get rid of it. And they sold it to an American investor. It is now in Arizona. Yes, there are stores in Hayes Galleria. Well, it's more like cafes and stuff really than shopping, but yeah. And so yeah, there's about the London Bridge. So this is the London Bridge straight ahead, the pinky lit one. You might have heard there's a lot of gossip, a lot of people, including a lot of tour guides, would love to tell you that the American investor was a bit confused, that he believed he was buying Tower Bridge, and that he had a bit of a surprise, when he built it back up. He was missing his towers. It is a great story, but I'm afraid it's not true. As far as we know, the investor was not that stupid. He had come to London, he had seen the London Bridge, so he knew which bridge he was buying. And the bridge we have today, it's from the 70s. It's a lovely bridge, but it's a classic bridge today. So London Bridge is very famous because of its history. We actually had 5 different London bridges over the years. It was known as London Bridge because it was the only bridge in London on the River Thames, because we used to have some lost rivers as well. It was the only bridge for that long because we had those ferrymen, those taxi boats. And they made a fortune by transporting people. They made so much money that they were lobbying Parliament to stop the construction of new bridges. And that worked until the mid-1700s, really. Now, under the London Bridge, it is said to be haunted. It is said that sometimes at night you can hear the cries of kids and families. There's a dark story, a very sad story actually. Well, we don't have a lot of historical references, but apparently, in 1290, Edward I, he expelled the Jewish community. So that was quite sad because a lot of families were kicked out. They were allowed to keep their cash and belongings, but they were sent back a lot of them were sent to France on ships. And their homes would have been seized, their cemeteries would have been seized, so they had to leave all that behind. And they had to go quite quickly. They had to go before the All Saints Day, 1st of November. And there's a story here that's not very well documented, but apparently there was one ship captain that had been hired to take some of those families to France. And they were meant to depart from here, somewhere around here under the London Bridge. And apparently the ship got stuck in the mud, so he asked the families to step out. They were waiting for the tide to come back in so they could go. So he still had their belongings on board, and apparently the boat left without them. So people drowned. They tried to kind of grab the ship and go anyway, and because they stole all their properties really. And yeah, some people died. So it is said to be haunted by their ghost. Quite a sad story. Apparently, it happened on several occasions. Some of them were always. They were a good target for pirates as well, because of course they would take all their cash with them or their belongings with them. So yeah, that was apparently they were very, very badly treated apparently. Anyway, let's go under London Bridge. Let me just show you a bit of the Shard. So that's the Shard up there. Shard, like a broken shard of glass. and let's go under the bridge. Under the bridge, there used to be an attraction called London Bridge Experience, where I worked myself as a zombie actor. And hold on, let me show you the spike up here. See that spike up there? That is art. It's fairly modern. According to the artist, it has nothing to do with the spikes that used to be here before. But you know, back in medieval times, that's where they had the spikes where they placed the heads of the traitors that were beheaded at the tower. And would you believe it was somebody's job position? Someone was known as the keeper of the heads. Their job was to collect those heads from the tower, boil them to preserve them a bit longer, coat them in some kind of tar, impale them on a stick, and then place them up there as a deterrent. But then the job was not over. They had to check the quality. When really they got too bad, their job was also to dispose of them, usually into the river. Anyway, I told you I was going to show you a gibbet. That's what they did to the dead pirates. So they were placed in a metal cage like this. That was quite expensive. They'd have to pay for their own cage, because that would be made on demand. And then their bodies would be placed like this. In some areas, it was quite gruesome, because some of the kids would throw rocks at them and stuff to see if any body limbs was falling down and stuff, so quite there. Anyway, this used to be the entrance to the London Bridge Experience, but I read on social media a few days ago that it closed for good. Apparently they've sacked all their staff and stuff. That's a bit sad. It was okay when I worked there, but that was like years and years ago now. That was when Boris Johnson was the mayor, because I used to see him here sometimes. So yeah, apparently they've closed for good. It was the competition to the London Dungeons, really. I've checked, wanted to see why they're closed. I've checked their Google review, no, their TripAdvisor review. But yeah, those little, the little staircase here, it is known as the Nancy Steps, because in the musical Oliver, that's where she's killed by Bill Syke. As we mentioned in my tour of Waterloo, the murder of Nancy in Oliver Twist, Charles Dickens might have by the murder of Eliza Grimwood in Waterloo, right next to Waterloo Bridge. Now let me show you the Priory of St. Mary Overy's, also known as Southwark Cathedral. It is a free cathedral, so you can go and visit. Not very much lit up tonight, but that's the one. This was the site of a royal wedding. King James I of Scotland, King James I of Scotland, not to be confused with King James I and VI of Scotland. Now, King James I, the Scottish king, he was the son of Robert III. Let the truck go through. His dad, Robert, had been disabled. He was kicked by a horse, I think, and his brother had been killed by his uncle. Quite tragic, the history of Scotland at the time. Anyway, little James had been captured. You know, at the time it was the relationship between England and Scotland was not ideal, let's say. So they tried to take the boy, the young king, to safety in France on a boat, and he was actually captured by English pirates. So he was taken as a prisoner by the English for 18 years. Henry V of England actually took him with him everywhere. He would take him to France and stuff. He actually made him a Knight of the Garter and stuff. And eventually when Henry V died, they didn't really know what to do with him. They married him. Well, he actually fell in love. It was not completely an arranged wedding, but they married him to an English girl, Joanne Beaufort. I think she was the grandmother of Henry Tudor, you know, Henry VII. Anyway, they were married here at Southwark Cathedral, and then after that he was freed. Well, with a ransom. They asked the Scots to pay for a ransom for his upkeeping and maintenance when he was prisoner for 18 years. And when he got back to Scotland, he was not always welcomed by everyone because he had become a bit too English, really. So the wedding was at the cathedral, but the party was at Winchester Castle. I'll show you where that is in a moment, or Winchester Palace, I should say. But for now, let me show you the Golden Hind. So you'll see a big ship here in a dry dock. It is the Golden Hind. That's the boat of a gentleman called Sir Francis Drake. You might have heard of Drake. He's of course almost considered as a hero. Although some might argue that he was a pioneer of the triangular trade, you know, early slavery. His early trips with his cousin John Hawkins, he was transporting slaves, you know, to sell them to the Spanish in the New World and stuff. Anyway, they've got a Golden Hind at the top. It used to be called the Pelican. But it was renamed the Golden Hind after the family of, I think it was Sir Christopher Hatton, that had a Golden Hind on his armories. This one is not the original, it's a replica, but it has gone across the globe as well to prove that it was possible. Sir Francis Drake, he was the second one to go across the globe after Magellan. What happened is he left. So we are at the time of Queen Elizabeth I. Drake was a commoner, you know, he was not from a noble family. And he left with 5 of those little ships, with actually a couple of nobles with him, just to make the trip legitimate. There was another ship called the Elizabeth, one Marigold as well, the Benedict and the Swan. He came back 3 years later with only 1 ship. Let me show you the view from here. So you know, at the time, the Spanish Empire was huge. You know, the big power in Europe really was the Spanish. And actually, Drake had a bit of a personal vendetta with the Spanish because he had, I think it was in Cartagena or in this part of the globe, he had an incident with them when they had broken a truce. So he was very much happy when Queen Elizabeth kind of commissioned him to go and steal from the Spanish. And he was really good. I mean, he managed to surprise them because he went down all the way south of Argentina. Then he came back up on the coast of Chile and all that. And he was surprising the Spanish, and he stole a lot of money from them. So much that the Spanish actually believed he had sold his soul to the devil. They believed he was so lucky because he was because thanks to the devil, and he was of course responsible for saving England. You know, managing to push back the Spanish Armada. So he's considered as a hero. But in recent years, they have tried to kind of reconsider his little role in slavery. Although I would argue he wasn't the worst, because even with the Native Americans, he actually tried to get to know them all the time and create relationships with them, and even with enslaved people, he actually sometimes he worked with them to steal from the Spanish, because sometimes the enslaved people, they knew where the Spanish had hidden the gold and stuff. But anyway, interesting character. And and the Golden Hind is, so that's a replica, but it's gonna cross the globe as well, just to prove that you can do it. Now, I was talking about the palace earlier. This is what's left over of the Winchester Palace. It was the residence of the Bishop of Winchester, Henry of Blois. Now, at the time of the Plantagenets and all that, when the king had some sons, the first was going to become king. The second one was usually pretty much always forced to go into the church, and the third maybe in the army. You know, there might be in there. Actually, in this case, it was not even true. His brother, Stephen, that became king, he wasn't even the first. There was a first William the Simple. But as you might have, okay, I think we are back. I'm gonna wait until you tell me that we are back. Apologies, I've lost you for a sec by the Winchester Palace, but I'll try to repeat what I was saying. So with Henry and Stephen of Blois, Stephen knew that his little brother Henry would have been a much better king than himself. So what he did is he placed his little brother as a bishop here in Southwark. So he'll be right on the other side of the river. So if he wanted to have some advice from his little brother, he could. Because officially, remember, ground. So we actually have a prostitute cemetery a few hundred yards behind us. Some of you might remember we've seen that in another one of my tours. Now, let's leave Henry of Blois behind and let's take a look at another pirate up there. So that's another pirate that was gibbeted. Cindy, no, they wouldn't have tried. I emailed them a while ago. They didn't reply. Anyway, so that's another example of a gibbeted pirate. Fake one, of course. And this was the entrance to the Clink prison. Probably the most infamous of the medieval prisons. In the Clink, you were hardly fed. It was probably named Click after the noise of the, those kind of chain and shackles you could have if you were a prisoner. Because the thing is, you were not fed. If you had money, you could buy those chain and shackles, and you could come and beg on the street. So the noise was going like click, click. So that's probably how the name of the prison came about. And they were struggling for food. There was a debtor prison. You know, at the time you could be jailed for having a debt. You know, you didn't pay your butcher, you could be, or your baker, you could be jailed. That's what happened to Charles Dickens' dad. You know, he was at Marshalsea prison because of that. And it was quite horrible. We know a lot about what happened at the Clink because of Father John Gerard, the one that we mentioned earlier, the one that allegedly escaped thanks to oranges from the tower. He also was locked in here for a while, and he left some writings about what was happening in the Clink. Some people were struggling for food so much that there was a guy downstairs selling rats. So they would be eating rats. The conditions of the prisons have changed quite a lot. But yeah, some people argue today that some people have too much of a good time in prison. I don't think it's too bad in the UK. You know what? I don't think people would be shocked if they knew what happens in the French prisons. In the French prisons, the prisoners have a lot of sex. They've got, it's not only France, Germany, Switzerland. I mean, for me, I think it's astonishing. They've got those conjugal visits, but it doesn't have to be your wife. It can be your fan. Like we have a serial killer in France, Nordal Lelandais. He was caught in 2017. Horrible killer. He was caught for 2 murders, but he's probably killed over 15. He was caught because of the murder of a little girl, Maëlys, plus Captain Noyer, military. Anyway, the guy is a serial killer, a horrible one, killing kids at a wedding. Then, you know what, he's jailed now for life. He got 2 life sentences. And, you know, you have those ladies that are fascinated by serial killers and they send them letters to prison. That's everywhere, that's all over the globe. But in France, not only can they send them letters, but they can go and check them in the prison. This is mad. I mean, I think people don't realize what's, you know, because of human rights and stuff. But so Nornal Lelandais, he's just had a child in prison with one of his fans. I mean, you know, so I think English prisons are a bit better because at least that doesn't happen. I don't think you've got such things over here. Anyway, that was my little rant about prison. I mean, you know, you'd think such a horrible killer killing kids should not be allowed to be on producing kids in prison. And if it was his wife that was married, no, it's a fan. Anyway, whatever. Let's move on. So this is a lovely pub. This is the Anchor. The Anchor pub. It's one of the oldest pubs on the South Bank. I'm gonna try to move because there's some music. I don't want to be caught for copyright. But yeah, it's at least, I think it's at least 1625. But some historians believe that it's even older than that. Not that particular building, of course, but the pub license. And it is allegedly haunted by the ghost of a dog. You know, we have a lot of stories of people that might have been kidnapped to work for the Navy or to work on boats. You know, people that used to be, they would make them a bit drunk in a pub, and then they'll kidnap you when you're drunk, and you'd wake up the next morning at sea in the middle of the ocean, and they'll tell you, no, you've agreed last night. You've agreed to come and work with us. And there's one story where allegedly a guy was kidnapped, and he was here a bit drunk, but he was with his little dog. And as they took the guy, they dragged him, the dog went crazy, and someone shut the door on the dog, and his tail was cut by the door when he was just trying to protect his master. And the dog is said to be still haunting the building today. Apparently, sometimes you can hear some ghost barking down the pub. Now, we're going under the Southwark Bridge in a moment. We'll see a few lovely engravings under the bridge that all relate to the frost fairs. Now, the frost fairs, they were those those lovely, what today we'll call Christmas parties or winter festivals or Christmas pop-up. Or back in the day, the River Thames was much larger, and London Bridge had 19 pillars, so that would hugely slow down the river. And also, historians and scientists now believe that we might have had what we called a little ice age or a mini ice age. We're not too sure about the date, but probably from the 1400s to the beginning of the 1800s, that it would have been. No, they said we're not going all the way down to Westminster Bridge. We'll stop at the next one, actually. So historians now believe that we had a period of maybe 400 years when it was at least 5 degrees Celsius less than it is today. They now refer to it as the mini ice age. That would explain a lot in terms of history, or even just why we cared so much about the American continent. Because you had a lot of fur, you know, in America, from animal fur, you know. So through that period of history, sometimes the River Thames used to freeze in the winter. But that was quite rare, you know, that'll be every 25 years. And when the river froze, a lot of traders went down the river on the ice to do what they called the frost fairs. So they were those amazing Christmas parties or winter parties. You'd have some souvenirs, you'd have some beers, you'd have some barbecues, and it was not under anybody's jurisdiction. So there were no regulations or taxes or anything like that. And imagine the type of party that your grandmother might have told you about, but it never happened in your lifetime. And then suddenly it did. Suddenly it froze. So everyone was going down the river. And when the river stopped freezing, they did some engravings here. I didn't expect the light to be turned out. Let's see if I can turn my torch to show you a bit of the engravings. It's usually a bit more lit up around here, but so you can see that's a boat taken down the ice. Those are the traders coming to sell their goods. That's the barbecue there where they're roasting a pig. Those are the printers. So people used to come and they'll buy a souvenir because, of course, you could come down with your printing machine and you could sell a souvenir saying, "Oh, John has been here." And actually, even the king. There's one print. Charles II came with his brother and his wife and his little niece, the future Queen Anne, and they had one printed. Those printers, they made a lot of money. So they would stay until the very last minute because they could make the equivalent of £600 a day today. But that was very dangerous because when it started to melt, they would stay until the last moment because they wanted to make more money. And eventually, sometimes the ice would break, and there'll be accidents. They'll fall, and some people died. That's my favorite. It's the ice skating of the ice skating shoe of the time. Now there was one group of people that was not happy when we had the frost fairs. It is the ferrymen, because the ferrymen, they made a lot of money by transporting people from one side of the river to the next. And of course, when the river was freezing, people could just cross. So the ferrymen, they actually started to put barriers and stuff and to charge people to go down on the ice, so they could, because sometimes it was frozen for weeks. Most of the time it was around here. It wouldn't go as far as Lambeth, but one year it went all the way down to Lambeth and all the way down to Gravesend on the other side. And after they removed the old London Bridge, the one that had 19 pillars, it never froze again. So the last frost fair was, I think it's 1814. It never froze again after that. Now, we can see a bit of St. Paul's Cathedral in the distance there. But talking about the ferrymen, let me show you the ferrymen sit. So those people on a boat, they would wait for customers, and they had a special seat over here that has been preserved. So that's quite cool. That's the ferryman's seat. So this area is full of history, really. Now let's go and take a look at the Globe. So the Shakespeare's Globe is over here. The Globe Theatre, it's not the original, it's a replica. It's very similar to the original, although it's not quite the same spot. And the gentleman that had it built, his name is Sam Wanamaker. He was an actor and director from Chicago. And he was a great fan of Shakespeare's, of course, like many actors are. And when he first came to London, beginning of the 90s, I think it was, he was very disappointed not to find the Globe. All he found was a plaque. It's like 200 yards down that way. A plaque that read, "The Globe used to be there." So he was very gutted, and he spent the rest of his life and a lot of his money creating a replica. So the Globe today, it's very similar to what it would have been at the time of William Shakespeare's. And it is the white building here with the thatch roofing on the flag. The flag it's because at the time of William Shakespeare's, a lot of people did not know how to read and write. So if I wanted to check what type of play was on that day and I didn't know how to read, I could check the flag. Red was a romance, black was a tragedy, yellow was a comedy. So that's how they knew whether they wanted to go to the theatre or not. You'd love to visit the Globe. Well, one of our friends, Gerard, does some visits in there, so you should book a tour with Gerard. You can also go and see a play. I would say, though, pay for the tickets that are expensive. If you stand in the pit, it's quite cheap. I've done it before, £5. But I can tell you, 3 hours of Shakespeare's standing in the sun, it's a bit long. And if it's raining, you're not allowed an umbrella because that would obstruct the view. So it's probably better to pay for a ticket a bit more and be on the... Let me show you the inside. I think I've got a picture. Yeah, there we go. So you could stand in the pit there. It's quite good though, because you can feel that really Shakespeare's plays, they had been written to be performed with an audience, because you know in the theatre today the audience is in the dark, you don't have any of the limelight. You are here because they'll play the play at the time of Shakespeare's, they played the plays in the afternoon, so they would use natural light so you can see the audience's faces. Yes, exactly, Tariq. So Sam Wanamaker, he sadly died before the opening ceremony. His daughter had to come and do the opening, cut the ribbon and stuff. Her name is Zoe Wanamaker. She's an actor as well. She plays the Quidditch teacher in Harry Potter. And yeah, it is open air because at the time of Shakespeare's, they played the plays in the afternoon, so they would use natural lights. But also because at the time of Shakespeare's, people didn't wash very much, so it had to breathe. Oh yes, Ronnie. Whether you know what, I probably don't even know enough about the subject to get too far deep into it. But yeah, there are a lot of theories that claim that Shakespeare's was not Shakespeare's. It wasn't the little William from Stratford-upon-Avon. It probably was a collective of writers. Or, I mean, the thing is, the guy didn't even spell his name the same way each time, Some might argue that at the time people spelled their names differently every time, but yeah, there are a lot of theories that Shakespeare's was not William Shakespeare's from Stratford-upon-Avon. We'll probably never know. And also he was writing about some stuff that happened at court and stuff when the guy was not at court. I mean, so yeah, interesting. And also at the time, if you'd come to see a play at the Globe, at the time of William Shakespeare's, there was no actresses. Ladies couldn't read anyway. How could they learn their lines? So you'd come and see Romeo and Juliet. Juliet was going to be a transvestile or a cross-dressing actor. Now this is the Tate Museum there. Not much to see at night. We're coming towards the end of the tour, but I want to take you on the Millennium Bridge because there's something I want to show you under our feet. So this is Millennium Bridge. You probably also recognize it from Harry Potter. It was featured at the beginning of the 6th Harry Potter movie. When they chose to feature it in Harry Potter, so they made it fall down, it was a bit of a historical joke because the bridge nearly fell down. As you might have guessed from its name, it was built to celebrate the millennium, the year 2000. And when they first opened it, 10th of June 2000, hundreds of Londoners stepped on at the very same time. And they were almost like marching, they were right behind one another. We know we shouldn't do that on bridges. It could make bridges fall down. Even the military, they have to break the step when they go on a bridge, because it creates some kind of an echo and it can make bridges fall down. Well, that's exactly what happened. The bridge started to move. Not massively, but enough for them to evacuate. And they closed it for many months. They did a lot of work. They even had to pay some volunteers to recreate the event. And Exactly, Sarah, the I cannot say it, the Wibbly Bridge. So that's why a couple of years later, when they did the Harry Potter movies, they had to choose a bridge to make it fall down. And they were like, it has to be the Millennium Bridge. In the Harry Potter books, J.K. Rowling, she did not mention this bridge. She mentioned the Hangover Bridge in Charing Cross. But yeah, it was a bit of a historical joke to pick this one because it nearly fell down. So if you don't remember that scene, it's at the beginning of the 6th movie. There is a scene with some Death Eaters flying over the river on pedestrians on the bridge, and the bridge falls down. So this is the one. Now I'm gonna go all the way up to the middle because I think there are some new chewing gum. Some of you might know there's an artist called Ben Wilson. He paints on chewing gums. So you know the dirty chewing gums you drop on the floor? It's not actually illegal, because the chewing gums, they don't belong to they're not public property. They belong to whoever has spat them on the floor. Now I'll show you a bit more of the Tate from here. It's quite ironic though. A few years ago there was an exhibition at the Tate about street art, and I saw a video of Ben Wilson painting a chewing gum down there, but that's the property of the Tate there. He was being kicked out when they had an exposition about street art anyway. And you know, if I cross over the bridge, I'm back in the city. So it's the city police, when on this side there would be the Metropolitan Police. The city police, they actually took his DNA by force, apparently. I'm assuming that would be because they wanted to take his DNA, you know, to check that it wasn't him spitting the chewing gum. Anyway, he's done one for me. Let me show you. That's from my Instagram because I couldn't find the original. Because I used to come down here, you know, with customers, and I would tell them, oh, he can take orders, you know, if you want him to paint a sushi, he can do a sushi. And one day I saw him and I was like, hey, can you make a sushi for me? And he was like, oh, bring me a model, bring me a sushi. And I believed it was gonna depend on the shape of the chewing gum. So I actually drew 3 different sushis. And when I saw him the next time, I was like, oh, here are the sushi. And then he had it done the next day. I don't find it anymore. It's been about 8 years now. It's on the other side down there somewhere, but it's very dirty. I can't really spot it anymore. But let's look under our feet. I've got a little torch. Because Ben was here. I saw him last week, I think. So there should be some new chewing gum somewhere. So we're gonna look under our feet. Let me turn the torch on. And let's see if we can find any nice... No. This is usually easier to do at daytime, but hopefully we'll find a good one. No. I'm sure there are some new ones because he was here recently. We'll find some. Bear with me. You know what? I'm gonna look with my eyes and I'll get the camera down the floor when I find one, because otherwise it's gonna be quite boring. There's one here, but it's not a nice one. Let me show you. Apologies. Why are you blinking? There we go. Let's find a better one. Sorry, my gimbal has got very confused. He's not used to be facing the floor. Come back up, my love. Come back up. Uh-oh. Bear with me. Wait. He doesn't want to come back to life. Sorry. Okay, that probably wasn't the best idea. I don't know what's up. It's completely... Okay, well, are you guys still here? I've lost the chat now. Lovely. Let me try again. It was going to be the end of the tour anyway, so if we can't manage, we can't manage. Don't know whether it's... Oh, there we go. No. Okay, well, we're gonna leave it there then. Let me flip this camera around. I don't have the, here's the chat. No, sorry. I do apologize, it's completely confused my gimbal. I don't know if it's dead or if it's... anyway, I'm gonna try to hold it like this. Thank you for coming, guys. It's gonna be the end of the tour. It was gonna be the end anyway, but I can't do much if the gimbal is not working. Hope you enjoyed it today. If you were new to me, hope you'll give me a subscribe so you can make sure you don't miss out on the fun next time. If you want to see a bit more of me, next week we're going to the Dockland area, so that's something to look forward to. And sorry about the abrupt ending, but yeah, my gimbal seems to be dead. It's been behaving funny. Remember, it overheat a few times last month, so it might just be on strike or something. Oh, thanks ever so much, Pauline. Thanks everyone. If you are gonna drop me a little tip on buy me a coffee or on PayPal as well, that's very, very much appreciated. Or feel free to use YouTube as well, like Pauline just did. It is really thanks to your generosity that I can keep going and create new tours and do more research and all that. So every little helps really. And yeah, that's about it. If any of you were completely new to me, hope you'll be back, and hope I see most of you next week in the docks. And have a great evening or a great morning, whatever you do today or tonight or whatever time it is for you, wherever you are in the world. And I'll see you soon. Bye bye. Oops.